You have probably looked at your underwear and saw your discharge and thought, what in the world? Maybe even you've Googled it, you've ignored it. Maybe you even felt weird thinking about it. But here's the thing, your discharge is one of the most powerful fertility signals your body produces. And today we're going to talk about exactly what it means and what it's telling you. Welcome to the birth experience with Labor Nurse Mama. That's me. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my guest before I even introduce her. Every single year since she got her period, her aunt has taken her out to lunch together to celebrate it. Not dread it, not complain about it, but to celebrate it. And when you hear about who her aunt is, that's going to make total sense. My guest is Sabrina Nowicki. She is the CEO of Cyclisity, the official charting app of the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, a book that has been changing women's lives for decades. And the book was written by her aunt, Toni. So Sabrina did not just stumble into this world. She grew up in it. She watched fertility awareness become a lifeline for women. And she even shares with me today about how women would come up to her aunt at those special lunches and tell her aunt how much she had impacted their lives, including them having children. So today we're going to talk about 3 ways you can track your fertility using the Fertility Awareness Method. We are going to talk about your discharge. So yeah, it may get a little uncomfortable because you're going to see that in your underwear, your cervical mucus, your cervical positioning. And I know some of that may make you squirm a little, but that's okay. So stay with me because what Sabrina is about to share is the kind of body literacy that really is hand in hand with the birth literacy that I teach you. And we need to take charge, y'all. So let's welcome Sabrina to the show. Good morning, Sabrina. I am so happy that you're here and I cannot wait to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I would love, you're welcome, by the way. And I would love to get started, like really dive deep into this conversation about fertility and the fertility awareness method. But I would love for you just to give us a little, like, go back a little and tell us why you're doing this. Like, why fertility?
Absolutely. I love this question. My story actually is a very personal story. And so for your listeners, I don't know how many people know the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, but the author of the book is actually my aunt, who I'm really close to. And the book is all about teaching you the fertility awareness method. And she first wrote the book back in 95. And she's every few years, she's been done revisions on the book. And it's also like translated into 12 languages. And it's a lot of what people call like their Bible. They are like women's Bible because they like a lot of their health information they learned from that book. So my relationship to the fertility awareness method is very personal because it all had to do with my relationship with my aunt. And what happened was actually since I was a little girl, when I first got my period, she was so excited for me. I feel like a lot of aunts and uncles, they're like celebrating your birthdays big or celebrating, holidays big. But she decided she was going to celebrate the day I got my period really big because she is all about body empowerment, like body literacy, women's health. And so ever since my first day of the time I got my period, we've gone out to dinner or lunch every single year to celebrate that day. And so
That is insane.
Yeah. It's a very unique story. I actually have never heard anyone else.
No, me neither, because most girls that age would be mortified.
Yeah. And I think, part of fertility awareness is about body literacy. And that's what she really ingrained in me since I was a little girl. And so that's something that's really personal and special. I will say I had like a major detour from fertility awareness method where I was on the birth control pill for a long time. I'm happy to get into that too, if that's something you're curious about. But I eventually came back to my Aunt Toni's teachings, and all of it it's just such a cool method because it's all very scientifically based and it's all about understanding your own body and being in tune with your own body. And ever since I've started becoming a FAM or fertility awareness method practitioner, I can see how the way I live my life directly affects my cycles and vice versa. And so that's just something so empowering that I am here because I want to, it's kind of like my aunt is like handing me her baton. She's like turned 70 last year and she's like really excited that I'm so excited about this field now. And I hope that I can do, even she's made such an impact in the world that I wish I could just do like a sliver of that and help people gain awareness of this amazing method so that they feel empowered in their own body as well.
I love this. And before Sabrina and I started recording, I told her I had some questions for her, but this is what I love about the Birth Experience podcast. It takes a life of its own. So
Absolutely.
I'm coming up with new questions for you as
I
well.
love it.
But let's go ahead and, like you said, your aunt literally wrote, and I'm saying this in quotes, the book on fertility awareness. And you asked me when we started this call, like when we started talking, if I knew the book. I probably do. I just didn't realize, but I'm very excited to like figure this out because I'm pretty sure I do know. I just am the type of person who does not remember the names of books.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard
But
for sure.
I read really fast. So let's just pretend whoever's listening has absolutely no idea what the fertility awareness method is. Can you walk us through that, like in really simple, easy to understand, like you're just chatting with someone at Starbucks, telling them all
Yes,
about?
absolutely. Yeah. So the fertility awareness method, the basic overview of it is that it's a window into your menstrual cycle and your menstrual health. So how is it a window into your menstrual health? So by tracking 3 bodily signs or biomarkers that you have, you're able to determine if you are or are not fertile every single day. And by determining whether you are and are not fertile, you can use that information to, try and conceive by timing intercourse, or to try to avoid pregnancy, or to just, increase your body literacy or improve your body literacy by understanding your menstrual and gynecological health. And so the 3 bodily signs you're measuring, the first one's called cervical fluid, or some people call it cervical mucus. The second is called basal body temperature. And the third is actually an optional sign called a cervical position. And so the cervical fluid is actually something that descends from your cervix, and it actually, comes out of your vagina. And a lot of people actually, I feel like when Toni talks about in this book too, when before she knew about the fertility awareness method, and a lot of women tell her this too, is that they think they're having like yeast infections every month or like something's wrong with them because no one really taught us this in health classes or in school. And what you're noticing is actually a very healthy sign in your body. So, and all of this is really cool because it's really scientifically based. So what happens with your cervical fluid, that descends from your cervix, is that it goes from dry quality to like something like sticky. Some people might see it more as like crumbly to creamy, and that might look more like lotiony for some, and into egg white. And egg white is like, it actually looks like raw egg white. It's clear and it's stretchy, and you can like with your fingers, like stretch it. And so you can feel the consistency of your cervical fluid changing throughout your cycle. And the reason that's happening is because when you go from your period to your follicular phase, your estrogen is increasing. And the estrogen increasing is what causes your cervical fluid to become more and more fertile in quality. And again, the egg white is the most fertile quality. And so what's very cool about the cervical fluid is it opens your fertile phase. And so you can see when your ovulation is approaching. And so that's one sign you're tracking. The second sign is called basal body temperature, or Toni likes to call it waking temperature. And Toni is my aunt. I should have clarified that. That's the author of Taking Charge of Your Fertility. And then, so basal body temperature, you can buy like a basal thermometer on Amazon for like $10 to $20 to $30. It's very affordable. And before you get up in the morning, so before you start talking, before you go to the bathroom, it's like the first thing you do when you wake up.
Before you even move out of bed.
Before you even move out of bed, and hopefully at this around the same time as possible. So you want to be as close in time as possible, because sometimes that also changes your temperature. You just put it on your tongue, take your temperature, write it down. That is your basal body temperature. So basal body temperature is really interesting because, after ovulation, progesterone is released in your body. And progesterone is a warming hormone. So it warms the temperature of your body. And so you can actually see your pre-ovulatory phase having low temperature and your post-ovulatory phase having high temperature. And that's what we call a temperature shift. And that is when by tracking your basal body temperature, you're able to confirm that you've ovulated. So basal body temperature actually closes your fertile phase. And so again, cervical fluid opens your fertile phase because you can see when ovulation is approaching, and basal body temperature closes your fertile phase because you can confirm that ovulation has happened. So by tracking and charting these two signs, you can determine your fertile phase. And your fertile phase is actually different depending on whether you're trying to conceive and trying to get pregnant, or if you're trying to avoid pregnancy. And so it's not like that it's opposite, but you can think about it this way. You know, if you're trying to get pregnant, you want to get as close to ovulation as possible. So the fertile window is going to be much shorter, because the whole point is like, how can we pinpoint ovulation so you're increasing your chances as much as possible? But if you're trying to avoid pregnancy, it's a lot more, the rules are written, there's strict rules that are written in a very conservative way to protect you. So there's a lot of buffer in the front and a lot of buffer at the end to make sure that your fertile phase is longer, and so that you feel very secure in the way you're using the method. And so by tracking those two signs, you're able to find this fertile phase. I did mention a third sign. It's called cervical position. The third sign is optional, because I think some women love it because it's like so cool once you know what like is going on in your body.
Yeah.
And you can like feel it, that your cervix is moving throughout your cycle. And as you get closer to ovulation, it becomes higher, softer, and more open. And so it's just like very cool to understand. But for some women, it's like, that's really involved. I don't really want to do that. Like that's too much for me to do every day. And that's totally fine. Like it's a third sign that just corroborates the first two. By just tracking the first two, you're practicing the fertility awareness method very well. It's just like a third thing. If you're really nervous, or if you just really think it's a cool thing to track, you're able to do that as well.
What's interesting about that is also a sign of labor. And I always say your cervix is like a satellite. It's pointed backwards, it's thick, it's hard, and it starts coming forward for the baby to come out, and it gets softer and it opens. Yeah. So that's very interesting to me.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So that is basically the overview of the fertility awareness method. Again, there's a lot of rules and guidelines involved depending on what you're using the method for. But the third thing about the method is like, it also really helps with understanding your gynecological health. So, you know, there's like things like PCOS, or I guess now it's PMOS, and then as well as endometriosis. There are signs that you can see by charting that helps you expedite your diagnosis if that's some like thing that you're struggling with. And so it's just a very cool natural method of just really being in tune and in touch with your body.
That's so interesting. So I'm sure that's a whole nother episode to talk about what those signs might be for those women. Just so you guys know, I am losing my voice, which is like terrible for a podcast episode, but here it is. I've got a nice little sexy, scratchy voice today. So, okay. So that is what the method is. But like, what do you think is the big like thing that women learn about their cycles? Could you pinpoint that? Like, what are some of the big things they learn? Because I would imagine a lot of women that knew none of that, and they start tracking, start learning a lot about their cycles. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I will just give you like more personal stories to like kind of tie that in. Is like, there's so much about how you live your life that also affects your cycle. So for example, I think it was my last cycle, I was part of like a very scary, like natural disaster. Like it was like a very stressful time. And my cycle, is usually around 30 days. And, you know, I ovulate around day like 16, around then, was like so delayed. My ovulation was like 5 to 8 days delayed because of it. And so I can tell that was because of the stressful month that I had. And what was really cool is I actually saw my cervical fluid get more and more fertile in quality. So I went all the way to egg white, but then I went back down to dry, and it tried again because it showed that my body was like trying to ovulate, but it was just too stressed to ovulate, and then tried again. And it's just these things where if you're not cycle tracking, you might just think that, oh my God, my period's late. Am I pregnant? And I knew I wasn't pregnant because I knew that I hadn't even ovulated because I was charting. Because it's never that your period's late. The reason your period's late is because, you know, either you're pregnant or your ovulation's late. And so by tracking, you can actually see, oh, okay, I was like never at any point worried that I was pregnant because I knew I hadn't even ovulated. And so these are things that you would never know if you weren't charting. And the thing about charting that's so cool is like you've become more and more in tune with your body, so you understand what's going on. Plus, you have this like feeling of like body empowerment, like body literacy that I've never had before. Like I always even understanding your cervical fluid, I feel like before I knew this, I was like, what is even happening? Like, why am I getting this like weird thing coming out of me? And now I know it's just like such a healthy, strong sign that my
Mhm.
body's doing what it needs to do. And I just think that's like so powerful. And coming off birth control as well, there were so many things while I was on birth control that I don't think I realized. I felt like I had this like anxiety all the time. And I've always been kind of an anxious person, but that's like all gone now with like being off the pill. I feel much more calm and in tune with my body. And I mean, I still get some anxiety, but it's not like the full body reaction that I used to
And what
get
do you
while I
think
was
that
on the
was from?
pill. I'm not,
What do you think
honestly,
was it hormonal, you think?
it probably was hormone. I mean, it's like, birth control is suppressing so much of your natural cycles and your hormones
Yeah.
and like replacing it with artificial ones. And so, again, one thing I want to be clear is like, I'm not anti birth control or anything like that. I think people need to make the best decision for their own body. But I
Yeah.
do think like at least in my generation, I felt like they were giving out birth control pills for anything. Like I went on it for acne. I didn't even go on it for the purpose of
Yeah.
birth control.
Yeah.
And so my whole goal with this being in part of the Fertility Awareness Method community and building Cyclisity is really just to make the Fertility Awareness Method as accessible as possible. So every woman gets the choice to make the choice of whether, they
Yeah.
want to use this method or they just want to understand their body better or they want to go on birth control. Like that's totally up to each individual. But tracking your cycles just gives you such a plethora of knowledge into your own body. And so when I have like cycles where things seem off, like then I know myself and I could bring that information to my doctor's visit. If you're like going to
Yeah.
your doctor's visit and you're like, hey, I feel like something's wrong, but you can't articulate what that is, versus now I can be like, hey, my cervical fluid is drying up too fast. Like, I don't know what's going on. Or like, why I'm starting to have really long cycles and my ovulation's delayed. Like, can we talk about that? There's so much more. Your conversation is so much more enriched and you get to diagnosis much faster because you are more in tune with your own body.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's so interesting how this was the question that came up for me a minute ago, because I've seen a lot of talk about like productivity and focus and like, especially for business owners or,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, according to your cycle. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
So
yes,
like,
yes, yes, yes.
like you don't want to do this while you're at this point in your cycle and you don't want to do that. But then you're talking about stress and how stress can affect your cycle. So all of
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And also thinking for my ladies that are listening who want to be pregnant. And I feel like even the process of like, okay, now we're going to try, the stress of trying, the stress of wondering, all of that could
Yes.
be delaying ovulation.
Yes, totally. No, it's like a vicious cycle, which is like not
Mm-hmm.
great. But especially for women who want to get pregnant, the fertility awareness method is so great because you are so in tune with your body to know that, okay, like I know that I'm entering my fertile phase. My cervical fluid is turning creamy and egg whitey. Like this is the right time to start having intercourse. Like I think I listened in one of your podcasts, you had something that said like, knowledge is power. And that's how I feel about
Yes.
this so much.
Yeah.
It's like everything you vouch for is like, the more knowledge you have, the more powerful you feel and stronger you feel in your body. And that's the whole point of a fertility awareness method is even when you're trying to get pregnant, it's about really understanding what's going on with your body so that you can time intercourse. And for people, a lot of doctors say, hey, try having, intercourse for like a year. And then if you can't get pregnant, then come see us. And if you're using a fertility awareness method, it really should only be like 4 to 6 months, because if you're actually timing intercourse and you're not getting pregnant, then there's something else going on and you need to get
Mm.
additional help with that, And so it also
So it
expedites you getting the
streamlines.
help you need.
Yeah.
Exactly. Streamlines,
Yeah.
expedite, it helps you get pregnant faster.
If you're pregnant and feeling overwhelmed, unsure about what really matters for birth, or hoping it all just goes well, this is for you. Most parents don't realize that it isn't effort, it's preparation that actually builds confidence. The Calm Birth Bundle closes that gap. It walks you through labor, birth, and your options in a clear, calming way. So you're not guessing in the moment or relying on someone else to decide for you. The goal isn't a perfect birth. It's a confident one. Right now, as a podcast listener, you can take $50 off with the code POD50. Go to labornursemama.com/calm Calm, CALM. Get prepared, feel grounded, and go into your birth knowing you've done your part.
And another thing is, kind of what you were saying about, I think you're talking about like cycle syncing, where people are like, oh, in your follicular phase, like do these workouts or do like more creative work. In theory, I think it's great. I think it's very cool. But I think the problem is a lot of people aren't actually tracking their cycle. So like I talk to a lot of friends who are like, oh yeah, I track my cycles and, I do the like creative work in my follicular phase and then like whatever and so forth. And I was like, oh, how are you tracking your cycles? And they're like, oh, I just put my period in this app and it tells me when I'm in my follicular phase, tells me when I'm ovulating. And I was like, that's not tracking your cycles at all. Putting your period into anything doesn't tell you anything.
No, especially like we were saying, because your cycles can be different.
Exactly. And like the whole point is like every woman is unique. And each individual woman, their cycles is like my cycle from this cycle is different from last cycle, depending on, like I said, my stress caused last cycle to be very, long versus this cycle is much more normal. So it really makes me like, there's, I think, a lot of hype around cycle syncing right now, but I think a lot of people are probably not practicing it correctly because they think they're in their ovulation phase when they haven't even ovulated. And so they're following these apps that are just telling you things that aren't even in the right phase you're in. And so one fold is like, you need to actually be tracking basal body temperature and cervical fluid to actually be tracking your cycles. And then you can maybe incorporate those like cycle syncing methods. And I think that makes sense. But I also think, like you said, cycle syncing sometimes I think stresses people out more. Like you have to eat this certain things. And it shouldn't be like that. The whole point is to like reduce stress. So if it's causing more stress, it's actually, I think, doing the opposite of what it needs to be doing. Like you're not going to, die if you do a HIIT workout in your luteal phase. Like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so, so like,
well, I will tell you that mood wise, for me, especially because I have two businesses and we launch and we do like live teaching and stuff. I know darn well when I do not need to be live teaching. Because I will be in my head. I'll be second guessing. I'm in a mood. I don't feel like being in front of people. And so I do think, but okay, so all of that aside, you said something that reminded me of another question I want to ask you. So you checked out all these cycle tracking apps and you're like, none of them are doing what they need to do. So tell me about that.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, a lot of them are very concerning. And so my aunt and I talked about this when we were building our app together, and actually one of the reasons why we decided to build the app is because a lot of readers of her book has emailed her asking her, what, does she have an app that she recommends, or does she recommend a certain app? Because, we're in the digital age, like, Toni loves her like paper charts, but in carrying them around, but a lot of people don't do that. They just have
I really
want to
have Toni on the podcast too.
Yeah.
She needs you both need to come back. This is another episode because I am positive it's her book that I don't know if you know this. I have 7 children.
I actually saw online. Yes, I did. It's amazing.
Yeah. My oldest is 36, mind you. Now I had him very young. There was no cycle tracking going on. He was just alone with a cute surfer for too long. Right. But my last one I had at 42. But so that being said, I had a lot of my kids in the 90s and I'm guaranteeing I probably know this book. I'm going to look it up as soon as we're done, but I'd love to have her on for a couple reasons. One, obviously she's a pioneer in this field and she inspired you, which is like, if we can inspire the next generation to have ambition and to become passionate about something that creates impact in the lives of others, way to go. Number 2, a 70-year-old helping invent an app is a whole, because like a lot of people in their 70s don't even know how to use apps, let alone invent an app. So I'm just excited.
Totally.
I really would love to talk to Toni. So sorry, I totally disrupted the conversation.
That's okay. Speaking of actually, let me touch on the inspired part is actually one of the reasons, like you said, what is my why at the beginning? I want to just talk about how the lunches that we would go on every year for my period, celebration for my period, but also just because.
Okay, hold on. I'm interrupting you again because this is something I've only told close friends, but literally the day I started my period, I called my mom and I started late. My period was later. So I was
Okay.
already in the like, I can't stand my mother stage of life, right? And I start my period. My mom is out to lunch with her best friend. Mary Marrier is her name. And they both come home screaming with like balloons and saying, I'm a woman now. And I was literally mortified. So the fact that
Oh,
your aunt took you out to lunch every single year to celebrate your period is so funny to me because I look back at the teenage brat that I was a brat. You guys, I was such a brat. The brat that I was. And my mom coming home, I could still remember it because I was sitting in the bathroom like crying because I was in pain and like,
oh
and her
no.
and Mary are out there going, "You're a woman, woohoo!" like screaming, and I'm like mortified.
Oh,
So
I'm sure you
were
were,
you
but it is
ever
very
like,
sweet.
were you ever like, oh my gosh, this is weird, or was it just embraced?
I think it was just embrace. I mean, it was more just like a one-on-one conversation, And it was every
Yeah.
year it got to be more about like talking about our life during that year or like what womanhood means to me and like just like being body literate. And so it wasn't like over the top. She's not a very over the top person. And so it
Yeah.
was very understated, but like in a very, it was just like a lunch where we got to connect with one
Your
another. So I
period
felt,
lunch.
yeah, our period lunch. And so one of the reasons, so we would go out to these lunches and going back to my why, like random people would come up to us and be like,
Because they knew
hey,
her.
yeah. And they'll be like, hey, I just want to thank you. The reason my son or daughter is alive today is because of you. And like people would just come over, just like random people that like, I feel like most people don't know authors, And so she's not
Yeah.
a very public person. She's actually a very private person. So it's the
Oh,
only
so she may
podcast
not
she's
want to come on the
well, no,
podcast.
she'll go on it with me. Like she's actually done a few
Okay.
podcasts because I begged her basically.
Yeah.
And so she'll go on it with me. But so the fact that like she's a private person and she still had people come up to her and just like thank her for all her work. And she has like people emailing her across the world every day, thanking her for her work. And like whether that's because they were able to get off birth control to prevent pregnancy, or a lot of times how they were able to conceive after years of not being able to conceive. And so that is honestly my why, is like seeing the impact she's had on the
Mm.
world through her work. And then in this technology age, and I have a background in product design and software engineering. So I felt like, okay, the way I can contribute is to help Toni build this app into the next generation. And so that's my why, is really being able to move forward the work that she's done into the next generation.
Well, and then on top of that, because of that, you really started implementing what she taught and
Yes.
seeing the power of it in your own life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so getting back to like the apps that are out there, the reason we were decided to build this app is one of Toni's biggest concerns are predictive apps. And there's a lot of them out there. And what do we mean by predictive apps? Predictive apps are apps that take past cycles, do a calculation on it, and then predict your future ovulation. Or they take the averages, women's averages throughout the world to predict the future ovulation. Or they're like doing more like a rhythm method, which is just like, again, a mathematical calculation of the past. And so
Yeah.
all of this, basically anything that's predicting the future goes against the whole principle of the fertility awareness method. It's the principle of the fertility awareness method is really to be that understand that every woman's unique. Each woman's cycles are unique. And so my cycle from this cycle to the last is different. My cycle to yours is different. It's really understanding that so that you're checking bodily signs every day to understand whether you're fertile that day or not. And so there's nothing predictive about it. It's really about understanding your day by day. What's different?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so there are fertility awareness method apps out there that are just basically replacement of paper and pen. It's a way to track your cycles and just have a digital way instead of a paper and pen way. And that's also great too. I think those apps that are out there to do that is wonderful. The thing that we wanted to really challenge or really bring to life is one of the reasons Toni wrote her book is because so many people, when she used to teach classes, like in-person classes, a lot of people come up to her and be like, well, this feels like really unfair, or this doesn't seem right, that the only reason I know this knowledge is because I live in Seattle and I live by you and I was able to take this class. Like, what is someone in New York or someone in Florida? Like, what are they going to do? And so that was her reason to writing the book, is that she felt like she couldn't one-on-one teach everybody. And so she wanted to get this knowledge out to as many women as possible. And so our app is called Cyclisity. And our mission at Cyclisity is to make the fertility awareness method as accessible as possible. And if you see Toni's book, it's actually I have it right here. It's very thick. It's very big. And so it's considered a reference book because it's written for 4 different audiences. So it's written for people trying to conceive. It's written for people trying to avoid pregnancy naturally. It's written for people who are trying to understand their gynecological health. And then it's also written for practitioners to learn about the method. And so that's why, you can use it to reference it. Like, if you're trying to get pregnant, you could just read those chapters. But what happens a lot of times, I believe, is like a lot of this information, I was never taught in school. I only know this because of my aunt. My friends only know this because of me. And so once you start reading, a lot of people just read through the whole book because they're just so fascinated about all this information. They were never taught about their body. But it is a very thick book, and not everyone, especially nowadays, love to read. And so what we wanted to do was... Is it
on Audible?
It's not. I've been telling her that she needs to get it.
Come on, Toni. Come on, Aunt Toni. Audible is the way. Yeah.
It is on Kindle, but it's not yet on Audible. But we are working through that. She's actually writing her 30th anniversary edition of the book right now. Yeah. So once she's done with that, we'll get to that after.
Yeah. Well, and just so you know, there are so many ways to do her voice in AI where she doesn't even have to read the whole thing. So,
interesting.
So you know.
Okay. Yeah. I will let her know that.
Because I'm sure she's not feeling like reading it for the next 2 years to record it,
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, so because of that, we wanted to build an educational tool. And so there's a little bit of nuance with our app. I think a lot of fertility awareness method educators, they're very anti-algorithms, very anti-predictive app, which is all very valid. And we are on the same page. What's different about our app is we actually do run the 4 fertility awareness method rules. So again, if you're trying to conceive, then you're using fertility awareness method as guidelines. So the rules are a little bit different. If you're trying to avoid pregnancy, then they are written very conservatively. And there are 4 rules that you have to follow to practice the method properly. And so what our app does is that it runs those 4 rules for you in the background. And again, a lot of these predictive apps, you don't know how the algorithm is working. It's like a black box algorithm that's like, they don't tell you how it's running. It's just like, you're supposed to trust this app that tells you whether you are or not fertile, versus ours, there's nothing secret about it. We're running the rules exactly as taught in the book. And not only that, we'll tell you how it's running it. So on the chart, if you select a certain day on the chart, it'll tell you why that day was classified a certain way by telling you which rules it was running. So the 4 rules that it runs, or 4 rules, are like pretty simple on the surface, but each rule has a lot of sub rules. Like there's these, I don't want to get into too much details, but like what happens when temperature falls back down, or what happens when cervical fluid stays creamy, like all these things have these sub rules that even as like a fan practitioner who's been practicing for years might forget those subtle rules depending on their cycles changing. And so the app is there to support you in the education. So it's just an educational tool. It's not trying to replace your own knowledge base. A lot of apps, I feel like, try to take that agency away from you and to be like, okay, trust the app, like green day, red day, like we know what we're doing. Ours is all about putting the agency back into you so that you feel really empowered in your own body. So it's an educational tool. As you start charting, you can click on a certain day within the chart and it'll tell you, hey, this day was fertile. It's classified as fertile because it was running these rules. It followed these rules. It checked off these rules. And then you were able to get to this outcome. And so again, it's not to replace your own knowledge base. It's really to enhance it so that it makes it more interactive. It makes it easier to learn. So sometimes if, let's say, a certain cover line, which is like the line that separates your pre-ovulatory temperatures from your post-ovulatory temperatures, like maybe you're like, hey, I'm confused why it's drawn there. I feel like it should have been drawn this elsewhere. You can click on the day and it'll tell you exactly why it was drawn that day. And like, if you're ever confused, like my email's open. If you email support@cyclicity.com, like I'm happy to walk through your chart with you. Like I'm always here to learn from my community and understand how we can make the app better. But again, it's an educational tool to support that. And so there is a little bit of nuance because technically, yes, it is, I guess, an algorithm that's in the app, but it's a very exposed algorithm. There's nothing that it's exactly all the rules are in here, and that's all we're putting in the app. And we are even telling you how it's running so that you can increase your pace of learning the method. And so again, the dream is that this makes it so that the fertility awareness method is much more accessible and it's easier to reach for more women throughout the world.
That all just goes with why she created the book in the first place, is to give the women that agency.
Exactly.
So of course she wouldn't want that to be taken from them. So I had another question and now I'm blanking on what it was going to be. Oh, I know. So in your form that you filled out for the podcast, you mentioned that you might be starting to try for kids here soon.
Oh, yeah. Did I say that? Okay. I can't even remember at this point.
You did.
Okay. So about a year ago, let me tell you about, I guess, my birth control story then, since people are so confused why I was even on birth control when I have Toni Weschler, the author of Taking Charge of Your Fertility, as my aunt. So one thing about Toni that you all should know, she's not a pushy person. So even though we had our lunches, even though she feels strongly about the fertility awareness method, her whole thing is, again, you make your own decision. You have the knowledge that you need and you choose for yourself.
That's exactly my whole platform.
Yeah,
mine too.
Exactly.
That's what I started Labor Nurse Mama because I was sick of seeing providers push women into the choices that they wanted them to make instead of allowing women to make their own choices for their birth.
Absolutely.
And so my whole thing is like, I'm going to lay it all out for you. You get to pick and choose. Like, I'll be like, hey, we might want to think about this if I feel like it's going to lead down to maybe a cascade of interventions or what have you. But if they want to get epidural, get an epidural. If they want to go on Medicaid, that's fine. If they want to be induced, that's fine. All those things, that's fine, because women also in the birth room, and you even mentioned, I said knowledge is power, but there's an extra layer to that. Knowledge is power if you use it. If you know it, but you're too scared to speak up or you're too scared to advocate for yourself, it's not super powerful. So there's also that. But anyway, okay. So back to that.
Totally. I resonate so much. And so basically when I was 15 years old, as we all probably have, I was struggling with teen acne and I was really self-conscious about it. And so my mom, who, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's related to the story. We had moved from Japan to the United States just a few years before. And so my mom's English wasn't very good, but she also really believes in Eastern medicine. And so that to say that she would have never agreed for me to be on birth control, but she took me to the doctor to go get acne medication. And at the time, I wasn't even sexually active. And my doctor was like, oh, you need to go on birth control and it'll clear up your acne. And as a teenager, and my mom, whose English wasn't great at the time, didn't understand what was going on. And for me,
she just thought it was acne pills.
She just thought it was acne pills. And I was like, this lady is telling me it's acne pills, right? And like, I don't think it's not that I probably knew I was going on birth control, but I don't think I fully registered what that meant, because
of course not.
In my mind, I was like, this is going to cure my acne. This is what I'm going to go on. And lucky for me, it did clear my acne. So then I was in this like horrible cycle, because once my mom found out that I was on birth control pills, like years later, she was like, what? Like, what are you doing on this? And I was like, you took me to get these pills. Like, you were there. And so I tried going off of it a few times, but every time my acne would come back in a vengeance, like worse than it was when I was a teenager. And so part of it was, I think I wasn't the most in my best health at the time. I was like drinking, in college. I was like eating horribly, like eating like grilled cheese sandwich every single day. Like, it was not the best time for me to probably be trying this. Also acne. And so I tried going off of it, didn't work. And so finally in the last few years, I was like, eventually I have to go off of it because I want to have kids. And after, talking to Toni more and learning more about just like how it takes your body a few cycles, potentially, like some women even up to a year, 2 years to like regulate. Some women, they might not even get their period back for another year. So I started just being like, okay, I need to, at a certain point, I need to like change my life and like get off of it. So it's actually, I think today might be the 1 year. I think within a few days of my 1 year anniversary of being off the pill. And I definitely had some like fluctuating acne issues, but nothing like before. And I think that's due to like, just like changing my health, working with a naturopath, going,
Getting
you know,
older.
getting older, taking some
Yeah.
supplements. And so all of that helps. I mean, I still get a little bit more breakouts than when I was on birth control, but it's nothing like when I tried to go off of it before.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad I went off of it last year because my cycles have been insane for like, I think it just started to regulate in like cycle 8. Like it was for like a few months, it was going from like 29-day cycle to like 45-day cycle. I was having luteal phases that were like 6 to 8 days, which is like not good. Like for anyone
Yeah.
listening, you should not have like your luteal phase. A healthy luteal phase is between like 12 and 16 days, at least 10 days. And
Yeah.
so, but it was really just my body regulating. Like I didn't really do much. I mean, I was eating healthier and all of that, like sleeping better. But like besides that, I wasn't doing anything more. And it just took 8 months for my body to regulate. Like and so it's really interesting because when I go to doctors, they usually tell me, oh yeah, if you want to get pregnant, just get off of it right before you're going to start trying. Like you don't need to get off of it before then. And seeing my cycles and seeing like a 6 to 8 day luteal phase for a couple cycles and then regulating. And now it's at like 12 to around like 13-day luteal phase, which is much healthier. It's just crazy to me that I was gonna ever choose that path, that I was gonna like only go off of it when I was ready. And so I think it's still a few months before we start trying, but like we're getting there. And I'm so glad I made this decision for myself to like get off of it. And at this point, I'm never going to go back on it. Like there's been so many things, like you said, like lifestyle factors, like I'm less anxious. I feel really good in my body. I know what's going on. And also like eventually, yeah, like you said, you can feel your emotional changes throughout your cycle. So you can do things like once you're actually cycle tracking, you can be like, okay, this is when I'm going to do my creative thing, things like that. I think I haven't implemented that as much because my cycle has been so wonky, but now that it's starting to regulate, I'm really excited to incorporate that as well.
I'm really interested too in so I'm in perimenopause. So like any thoughts on that or with cycle tracking or any of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Toni, actually, her new edition is going to have so much more on perimenopause because,
okay, I'm going to get it.
As you probably know, it's like there's so much new research that has come out in like the last few years on menopause and perimenopause that's been like so neglected forever. And so her current edition has some information, but that's why she's kind of writing her new edition is a lot of the focus is on perimenopause and menopause and how you chart during that phase. But charting does become a little bit more difficult because your cycle is becoming more and more irregular. But Toni did chart all the way till her last period. And so it's definitely possible. And I hope that her new book that's going to come out hopefully soon will have all the information you need.
It's going to have to be like this thick.
I know.
Because like perimenopause is no joke.
Yeah, for sure.
Gosh,
that's why
I was
actually this is why the book is delayed is perimenopause.
I mean, that's why everything's delayed. Perimenopause makes you in a brain fog too. It's so funny because I was having a conversation with one of my coaching clients because I also coach women who are building businesses in the maternal parenting space. And she is a menopause coach. And we were having conversations about this. Like, it's such it's so horrible in certain ways because it feels a lot like early postpartum, but all the time. And you don't have a baby. Like, you don't have that good thing, So it's like, you got all this, but there's no baby at the end of the day. So yeah. So I'm excited for that update for sure. Well, I know my mamas and my listeners they don't love long podcast episodes. So I guess to close this out, if there was one thing that you would tell women that they need to know about their own cycles, what do you think is that one thing? Like, could you narrow it down or, like what is one thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is that your body is just, I don't know how to say this concisely, but it is so cool to cycle chart because you're so in tune with your body. Like, I don't know how else to say this. Like, even just like from going from like, ew, what is in my underwear to like, wow, that's so cool. Like that, I am about to ovulate. Like, look at this like clear, stretchy egg white to like, oh, I'm like feeling kind of moody to be like, oh, okay, my period's coming tomorrow. Like all of that by knowing that, it's like, instead of being like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I so like upset? Like, what is going on? To being like, oh, it's just that time of the month. I'm going to feel better tomorrow. My hormones are just wonky today. Like all of that is not possible unless you were cycle charting properly. Again, putting the agency back in your body and not external, like not relying on an app. The app is there to support you in your journey,
Yeah.
which is why we built our app. But the whole point is to really understand your own body by knowing this knowledge. And
Well,
so that's what I would say.
Also, sorry to interrupt you again.
No,
They are
of course.
going to have to get comfortable with touching their own
Oh,
body.
yes,
Just so all of you guys
absolutely.
know, there's
That's
some
true.
fingers in the vagina involved here to get to check your cervical. I've always called it cervical mucus but it is cool because I can even picture it when you're doing the eggshell.
Yeah.
Like,
And
yep.
honestly, actually, I only check it on my underwear or like while wiping with a toilet paper. And so like, if you really, you can check it internally, but Toni actually teaches to check it externally. So it's a little less involved.
I guess I'm a labor nurse, so
so
it doesn't faze me at all. But there you go. For those of you guys who are like, ew, I'll check my underwear.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I am so glad you came. And I really would love to invite you to come back with Toni because I feel like that would be such
great.
a fascinating conversation. Maybe when the book
is
updated, we could come back and like kind of promote that.
Well,
thank you.
Great.
And can you tell everyone where to find you and where to find your app? And then we will link to in the show notes as well.
Great. So for the app, it's Cyclisity at the Apple App Store. One thing I want to just notify everyone is it's only in the US and Canada in the Apple App Store right now. We're working on the Android version as we speak. The reason it's a little slower is we're a self-funded team. We made this choice on purpose because we always wanted to advocate and do what's right for the customers. One of them being making privacy as secure as possible. So we actually have no access to your data at all. So it just takes a little bit of time to build things when you're self-funding things, but it is coming. And so I'm excited to share with the Android community soon. But right now it's just on the Apple App Store. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok I think Instagram is Cyclisity and TikTok is Cyclisity App. And then for my personal like founder account, I'm at Wandering Sabrina on all social platforms.
I love it. Thank you again for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trish.
That was such a good conversation. And I'm so happy that I had Sabrina on. And I'm really hoping that Toni will come on. So as always, if something landed for you or you were tracking with this and you're like, yes, I needed to hear this, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review and tell me what landed the hardest and tell me if you're uncomfortable checking your discharge. I'd love to hear that as well. The reviews mean so much to us and it's just like, thank you so much. As always, I will see you again next Friday. Bye for now.